Well, welcome back, and welcome to session one, entitled Why Do I Want to Lead? I hope you've had an opportunity to watch the introductory session. If not, it's really important that you do that because it really sets the tone for all of our future sessions, and it also defines leadership as we'll use it throughout our time together. So it's really important that you spend time in that introductory session. So now let's dive into this question of why you want to lead. Why do I want to lead? Perhaps more important than leading itself is the motivation for wanting to lead. And here's why I say that. Your motivation or desire for leadership will trickle down into everything you do as a leader. If you aspire to lead in order to gain power or position, financial gain, control over people or processes, or the corner office, or even just the myth that with position comes freedom and influence, you'll never be a great leader. In fact, you won't even be a reasonably good leader. You may become an effective manager, but you won't become a really good leader. And keep in mind that managing is a component of leadership, but in no way in and of itself makes you a good leader. For example, you can be an effective manager, but not necessarily have influence with people. And influence is key to good leadership. Good leaders have influence with others. And here's a key point as it relates to influence and leadership. A leadership position does not give birth to influence. Influence gives birth to leadership, and influence is earned. Let me repeat that. A leadership position, the position in and of itself, does not give birth to influence. Influence gives birth to leadership, and influence is earned. This is especially true early in your leadership journey, but it applies throughout. And we'll talk more about why that's true in one of our future segments. But I'd encourage you to write that down and think about that as you consider your leadership position. So back to the question, why do I want to lead? Here's another thought that I'd encourage you to write down and reflect on. The desire to lead must come from a heart that is compelled to positively impact the lives of others. Again, I'm going to say that again because it's worth repeating. The desire to lead must come from a heart that is compelled to positively impact the lives of others. Much of what we cover will be coming from the books of 1st and 2nd Timothy. And as you may know, these books outline the Apostle Paul's instructions to his protege, Timothy, as he handed over the reins of the church at Ephesus to his care. It's amazing when you dig into some of these passages how much leadership teaching you'll find. And while we'll cover much of these books as we go, we're not going to be going in order, we're not going to be going verse by verse. This isn't a Bible study per se, but an extraction of what Paul teaches Timothy and us about the important aspects of leading. Now, I said the desire to lead must come from a heart that's compelled to positively impact the lives of others. See, we tend to look at our goals, our end desired result, as something like produce 2 million quality widgets a year, right? Or increase profits by 10%, or increase attendance or participation in a particular activity by 20%. And there's nothing wrong with goals like that. In fact, we all have goals like that. But I would suggest that they should be a byproduct of what occurs when your real goal, your heart goal, is to positively impact the lives of others. The old adage that may be cliche, but it's very true, and I'm not a big cliche fan, but it's very true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you can't fake that. You have to have a love for people. In chapter 3 of 1 Timothy, Paul's talking about the qualifications for elders and deacons of the church. Simply put, he's talking about the qualities one should have to hold a leadership role. And one of the first things he says is, if anyone has a heart set on being a leader, he desires a noble task. See, producing widgets, increasing profits, or improving attendance is not in and of itself noble. Improving and impact the lives of others, well, that's a noble task. But if we're going to impact the lives of others, we have to care about what they care about. We have to care about them. In fact, we have to love them. That may make some of you uncomfortable, but that's the truth. In chapter 1 of 1 Timothy, Paul is telling Timothy that there's dissension in the ranks in the church in Ephesus, that untruths are being told, and some of the leaders are stirring the pot. And we're going to talk about stirring the pot in a future session. He says this is all leading to controversies, and he needs Timothy to fix it. He said there's good work, God's work that needs to get done here. But then listen to how he concludes this instruction to Timothy. In verse 5 he says, the goal of this command, all these instructions I just gave you, the goal of this command is love, which comes from a pure heart and a good conscience. See, the goal isn't even the undertaking of those tasks, the undertaking of God's work, which is critical, that Paul instructs Timothy on. He says the goal is that they love and care about each other. See, because if that occurs, the work will get done. This dissension will stop, and the work of the church will move forward. So what's the application for us? Well, whether you've been leading people for 20 years, or you're just stepping into leadership, or you believe you're called to it, you're not even really in it yet. Caring about the people that you will lead, or that you do lead, is critical to becoming a good leader, and you can't fake this. If you truly don't care for the people around you, then you shouldn't attempt to lead them. John Maxwell, great author, speaker, leader, addresses this so well in his book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. It's a great book on how we progress from the early stages of being a brand new leader to the pinnacle of leadership that few actually reach. He talks about level 2, and level 2 is where the caring for people aspect of leadership is so very critical. Maxwell calls this the permission level. And this is where relationships and trust are built. This is where whether or not you truly care for people will become abundantly clear. I'd encourage you to read this book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, if you haven't already. And I'd suggest that if you aren't effective at what's necessary to be a level 2 leader, this permission level, this relationship building level, if you're not effective there, you'll never be a truly effective leader. We'll devote an entire future session to relational leadership because it's that important. But what are the applications for us here? What are our takeaways? We said we'd have takeaways. First, you must ask yourself, why do I want to lead? Do I really care about people? Does seeing others flourish and grow and have success in all aspects of their lives give me joy and satisfaction? If so, moving into relational leadership will be natural for you. You'll care about the families of those you lead, how their kids are doing in school or sports. You'll know their spouses' names. You'll make note of special dates like birthdays or anniversaries. You'll stay on top of family members that may be sick or in the hospital. And you'll take time to know their hopes and dreams. Not because you should, but because you want to. Caring about those you lead means you'll listen more than you'll talk. Second takeaway, read John Maxwell's book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. It's not just for new leaders. I've been leading for years, and I read this book just a couple of years ago and had a number of great takeaways from it. Third, remember what Paul said in 1 Timothy 3:1. If anyone has his heart set on being a leader, he desires a noble task. Is that what you desire? A noble task? Producing more widgets and improving the company's bottom line may be worthy goals, and goals that need to be achieved, but they're not noble. Having a meaningful, positive impact on the lives of others is a noble task. And when you've done that, people will follow you off a bridge if that's what's needed to meet the widget goal. They will. So, take those takeaways, look at those, work on those. Next week, we're going to get together and talk about the attributes and characteristics that are critical for anyone who seeks to lead others. We're going to challenge ourselves on whether or not we have those characteristics and attributes, where we're strong and where we may be weak. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Have a great week. Be blessed. See you next week.